Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is now 4:15.
Yes, sir.
So 11 students have joined. Only
Okay,
only 11 have joined. So you start. So let
okay,
us start. Okay, let us start. What to do? You cannot impose any condition to these grown-up boys. Ugh, what to do? It's all our bad luck that they're not improving. विद्यासागर तू विद्या की खोज में घूम गई है 100 साल बाद ज्वाइन किया वो घूम रहा है रास्ता में लखनऊ का बंदा लखनऊ में भूलभुलैया में छुप गई ओके स्टार्ट
okay, sir.
स्टार्ट 12 लड़के ज्वाइन किए हैं विद्यासागर को ढूंढो जरा तो जस्ट आस्क हिम समथिंग वो जब मन चाहे उसका गलत सोच जैसे तुम कर सकोगे तो करो सेमेस्टर पढ़ा नहीं कुछ इस सेमेस्टर में ज्वाइन किया कचरा बंदा तो ओके स्लाइड शो कर दो स्लाइड शो हो पाएगा
So laptop रुक गया है, sir, एक मिनट.
अच्छा ठीक है दो वर्ड we use very often here one is choreography another is orchestration very much necessary two concepts you have to make it very clear what is orchestration what is choreography how SOA takes help of these two concepts so you have to be very clear about it all the time these two words come orchestration choreography हाँ बढ़िया बढ़िया नहीं आ रहा था क्या हुआ नहीं चलो जो हुआ शुरू कर दो
एक मिनट. सर ये फुल स्क्रीन हो नहीं रहा है, पता नहीं क्यों, सर.
अच्छा ठीक है चलो 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 बाबू चलो चलो नेक्स्ट क्लास में कर लेना
Okay.
ठीक है फिर ऑफ
So
करके करना पड़ेगा टाइम
yes,
बर्बाद
sir.
मत कर चलो
Laptop on.
या
So in the last class, we have already discussed what different types of open issues in designing a service-oriented architecture. In this class, we are going to see some of the new open issues. In that, we have one business activities. So, what is business activities? Business activity is simply a complex activity, but in complex activities, there is no scope of using the protocols. But in case of business activities, we can use protocols in complex service activities. We can see over here, business activities govern long running complex service activities. It could take hours, days, and even weeks can pass before a business activity to achieve to able to complete, right? So we can and how this business activity is going to differ from this transaction kind of activities. So in business activities there is no any protocols like which has any rollback capabilities, but in the last class we have seen, suppose a business activity having transaction support, it can have that rollback capabilities, but our simple business activities do not possess any rollback capabilities. So instead of this rollback capabilities, business activities has this compensation technique. What this compensation technique means, suppose any kind of failure occurs while performing some operation, so it always have a plan B. See over here, we have a service A and it tries to do something like it wants to communicate to service B, and if something goes wrong, then it starts communicating with C. So this is kind of plan B. It does not possess any rollback capabilities, but instead of that rollback capabilities, business activities have that compensation technique. So, so how this business activities going to compensate? There are in the WS atomic transaction, we have seen there are three types of protocols there, which implement that rollback capabilities and that commit kind of thing. So in this business activities, we have similarly we have here two kinds of protocol. First one is business agreement with participant completion protocol, and the second one is business agreement with coordination completion protocol. So what does first one states? It simply states that this protocol allows a participant to determine when it has completed its parts in the business activities, right? And the second one simply states it requires that participants rely on the business activity coordinator to notify that it has no further processing responsibilities. Here we can see it is the business activity coordinator. This is business activity coordinator. It is going to coordinate between the registration service, activation service, and these are the various participants which are making this business, which are compositively making a single business process. So we can have different states of a business activity. Let's say it start with the start state, then it can go to active state, and from the active state it can either go to cancelled state, or it can go to compensation state, or it can go to completion state. And from this compensation state it can again go to active state, and from this cancelled state it can go to exit state, and from complete state it can as well go to exit state. These are 6 different states of a business activity. So sorry, it is not like business activities cannot compose of different atomic transactions. We can see in this example, suppose this is service A and it is composed of different atomic transactions. See over here, we have this section represents a single atomic transaction. This section where we have service D and service E, it also represents a single atomic transaction, which means it has commit facility and this rollback facility. And we have here service F and service G. This does not possess any atomic transaction facility. So this does not possess any rollback and commit functionality, right? So overall this is a business activity, and each part represents a atomic transactions, right? So business activities can be composed of different sets of atomic transactions. And how this business activity is going to promote SOA? So business activities can promote SOA. We have here, we can see over here, it supports composability principle of SOA, interoperability feature of SOA, and quality of service principles of SOA. We have 8 different principles of SOA, and each of these open issues going to support or promote in any way, going to support or promote this at least one of them SOA principles. So we can see over here, this business activity is going to support or promote these 3 SOA principles. First one is composability, the second one is interoperability, and the third one is quality of service. So this is that TLS and RELCO example in context of business activity. We can see over here at the RELCO part we have order fulfillment service, and the TLS part we have purchase order service. So when we purchase any any items from this Relco, since Relco is a parts supplier. So suppose we purchase some parts from this Relco. So a soap message is going to here we can see a soap message passes from this 1 to 2 service, means this represented 1 and this service is represented by 2. So from 1 to 2 a purchase order message is going this way, and after fulfilling this order fulfillment, again the soap response message going from order fulfillment service to purchase order service, and it is working based on the order amount. Suppose order amount is greater than 100k, it is going to it is just like in loan processing example we have seen, in case of amount requested is greater than 25 lakh, then that soap message is going to, first it will go to this credit rating information service, then it will go to large load processor. In the same way it is going to process. If you remember, if you have complete details about this Relco and TLS, then only you can understand this example. Now the orchestration and the choreography. There are two important topics in this chapter. The first one is orchestration and the second one is choreography, right? So orchestration, it is also going to be implemented in Oracle SuaSuite by BPL process. See, this is the theoretical concept, means first one we are going to see what is orchestration and how why we are studying orchestration in SOA, and the third one is implementation, how this orchestration is going to be implemented in our SOA project. Means suppose we are using any tool, then how this orchestration concept is going to be implemented or going to be realized in our SOA project. So first we are going to see what is the general meaning of orchestration. So in the maybe first or second class, sir already told about this orchestration principle, what is orchestration, using that orchestra example and that choreography term. We have already seen this term. So let's see the technical details of this orchestration. So orchestration describes the automated arrangement, coordination and management of complex computer systems, middleware and the services. Means suppose we are using orchestration as a tool, then what it can do, or what are the different we can say different kind of services we are going to orchestrate. So what are the different kinds of service? So the first one is the management of complex computer systems, the second one is the middleware, and the third one is the services. Suppose we have 100 services and I want suppose, let's say, suppose I have a service S1, service S2 and service S3, and let's say we have a service S4. I want service S1 to be invoked first, and after getting the result from S1 it goes to S2, and after getting result from S2 it is going to invoke S3, and after getting result from S3 it is going to invoke S4. So this kind of procedure, this whole protocol is going to be implemented by BPL, and this is orchestration. A simple example of orchestration means, just like suppose we have 4 functions, I am calling one function from another function, that is kind of orchestration. In context of service management, that is called orchestration. And and how this orchestration is going to be implemented? This orchestration is going to be implemented using this WSBPL. This is one of the specifications. These are only specifications. These specifications are realized by some vendors. Suppose Oracle is a vendor, Microsoft is a vendor, and Microsoft means Oracle is using this VPL specification and implemented this specification in their tool Oracle SuaSuite, right? Similarly, Microsoft have their own tool, that is BizTalk. BizTalk server, right? So BizTalk server is going to also going to implement this WSBPL specifications. And why we require this specification? We require this specification for orchestration purpose. Specification simply means standardization, means orchestration. We know the term orchestration, and what this WSBPL does, it simply standardizes this orchestration principles, so that anyone wants to implement this, they must follow some certain rules, right? So or if Oracle SWA Suite wants to implement this WSBPL, they must follow this specification. So that is called orchestration. See over here, we have service B, service C, service E, and service D. And service A is known as orchestrator, right? So any kind of situation, means D wants to call from A, and after getting the result from D, it forward the result of D to B. So that kind of scenario is going to be performed by that BPL process. So orchestration is a simple generic term, and means orchestration is simply a generic term, and the specification for this orchestration is WSBPL, and the realization is Oracle SWA Suite. In that Oracle SWA Suite, we have that realization, that is implementation. See, this whole process means calling S1, and after getting the result from S1, it goes to S2, and after getting the result from S2, it goes to S3, and after getting the result from S3, it goes to S4. This is called workflow logic, right? This is called workflow logic. In our loan processing example, we have also there a workflow logic. Means what was the workflow there? We have that workflow, means let's say we have amount lesser than 19, amount lesser than 25 lakhs, amount greater than 25 lakhs. So in these cases, we have that decision box, where here we have a decision box. That is the workflow, right? We have already seen this example, please recall. That is the workflow. So in this, we can see over here business protocols and process definition. The workflow logic, that diagram is called workflow logic. That the workflow logic that comprises of orchestration can consist of numerous business rules, conditions. One of the conditions where whether the amount is lesser than 25 lakhs or greater than 25 lakhs. In upcoming labs, we will see what are the different kinds of business rules we can incorporate that in that BPL process, and what are the different kinds of events, right? Suppose let event को हम लोग लैब में देखेंगे. And in the next part we have so these parts of orchestration establishes a business protocol that defines how participants, what are the different participants? Participants are simply web services. In this book is a theoretical book, right? This only deals with the theoretical aspects of the SWA. So in this book, the different names, the different terminologies are used for the same thing. So how these participants, means participants here only represents the web services. So defines how participants can interoperate to achieve a completion of business task, right? So orchestration only deals with the, suppose we have hundreds web services. I want to get a particular result. In loan processing example, I want to get my what was my requirement? I simply want that my loan application gets processed anyhow. So depending on the contents of the loan application, it may get processed by the large loan processor, it may get processed by the uh, large loan processor, normal loan processor, manager review processor, or we have that credit rating information. So depending on the contents of the loan application, it may get processed by the different kinds of different kinds of participants. See over here, we have participants. So it is talk and what we are, why we are doing that, to completion of a business task. What was the business task in that example? That is the loan processing. That is the main objective of the business task. So सर
हाँ बोलो
सर मैं लैपटॉप मेरा हैंग कर रहा है थोड़ा सा, 1 मिनट में फिर से स्विच ऑन कर ऑफ करके ऑन करूँ क्या सर?
ठीक है करो करो हाँ करो 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 प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है ओके this internet based education creates problem yeah what to do have you joined not yet we are planning to call back the final year students so after they reach back then only we will plan to call your batch so not yet decided when we will call back again the vaccination process will start from 16th so we don't know when the vaccination will reach our institute here so after the vaccination at least the first phase is over then I think we will call your batch the vaccination is being done in 2 phases first phase then second phase is after 3 months after 3 months. So until both the phases are over, the threat is not over. So we have not yet taken any decision. Today is a big decision for calling back. Some meeting is going on today in our institute here to call back the final year students. But after they reach here, they are not following the rules, regulations, and again the corona problem is getting spread. is spreading. So we are scared to call you back or not. Some students of Abhishek batch came and they got infected, corona infected here. So that's why you are getting scared. We are getting scared to call you back. Abhishek भैया ने आया नहीं आया? Not yet come. Not yet come. उसका laptop is giving problem. Let me call him. Did he join? Are you able to? Abhishek आ गया. आ गया? हाँ आ गया. Yes. चलो अभिषेक आ गया. नेटवर्क क्वालिटी उतना अच्छा नहीं है. चलो.
वो सर बहुत दिन से लैपटॉप ऑन था इसलिए सर.
हाँ. चार्ज है ना अभी? चार्ज है. हाँ. अच्छा.
So this, if we talk about the typical diagram of a orchestration, we can see over here this process service is composed of this partner service, first one, and first partner service, then second partner service, and this third partner service. And this process service is simply a gateway. In our example, this same diagram is represented as in our lab. We have represented this same diagram as this one. This is API, that is process service, and at the BPL side we have these partner services, that is web means addition web service or multiplication web service and this subtraction web service. So this API represents this process service, and these are the partner services which are useful or which are useful to implement this process service. So in our tasks 2 we have seen what was the process service. It was to find out the maximum of x minus y and x plus y. Let's say this was the example, and this is the process service. And what was the additional, what was the partners service there? That is the subtraction, addition, and this multiplication. Let's say this is the multiplication. So these are the different partner services, right? So each of the concepts we are discussing in this chapter, we are already discussed in our labs and we have already implemented. But you need to correlate, right? You need to correlate between these these concepts and their implementation. We have already seen these examples, but in our lab we are using different terminologies, and in this book we are here it is given different terminology, right? So these are same things but having the different terminology. This book is full of different terminology for the same thing. We have seen this complex activity and this orchestration, this business activity. These all are same thing. These things are implemented by a single BPL process. So in our lab we are seeing. Yes, yes.
Audio quality उतना अच्छा नहीं है, बहुत poor है. I don't know. I am not getting the right quality audio. Audio को मैं mute करके फिर on करो तो.
Okay, sir.
The audio quality of Abhishek. I am getting very poor audio of Abhishek.
Hello.
Abhishek audio बहुत poor है. करो, करो.
Okay.
Sir, we can hear Abhishek Bhaiya very clear.
You can hear very clearly. Okay, then there is some problem
So,
here.
so your
Yes,
voice
sir,
is cracking.
Your voice is cracking.
Okay, okay. Then I am editing and again I will connect. Okay. चलो Abhishek, चलो.
Okay.
Okay.
So, how this orchestration going to promote SOA? How in which way? In which way this orchestration? Which principles are get supported by orchestration? So orchestration is going to support this composability, interoperability, extensibility, and vendor diversity. Please think upon this. Why this orchestration is going to support composability only, not loose coupling? Why this orchestration is going to support interoperability, not reusability? Why this orchestration is going to support extensibility, vendors diversity, and it is not going to support quality of service? Please think upon it. You will go. You will easily get the answer of these questions if you go through each line by line of this concept, right? So I'm not going to tell you why this orchestration is going to support only composability, interoperability, extensibility, and vendor diversity, not going to support loose coupling, discoverability, quality of service, and reusability. You can think on your own. Okay, so here we can see this interoperability is discussed over here. See, these quality leads to organization agility. What this organizational agility stands for, we can see in this discussion. The workflow logic encapsulated by the orchestration can be modified or extended to a central location. What is the meaning of this? See, we have seen the orchestration logic. What was the orchestration logic for loan processing example? In case of loan processing example, the workflow logic was like this. We have a decision box over here, then we have a decision box over here, and in this part we have an invoke activity, and again we have an invoke activity. This invoke activity is going to call credit rating information, and this invoke activity is going to call large loan processor, right? So this was the workflow logic of the loan processing example. But suppose I want to modify this, right? I want to modify and I want to extend. Let's say I want to again add some decision box over here. So this all modification or extension is located at a central place. What is that central location? That central location is Oracle SOA suite, right? It is not going to name any tool, right? In this whole book, not going to name any particular tool. It's going to generic. It always try to name using that generic name, right? So in this case, it is represented by the central location, that Oracle SOA suite, right? So positioning of orchestration centrally can significantly ease the merging of business process. Merging of business process means we try to orchestrate, right, merging of different business process. What are the different business process in banking system? We have a loan processing example, we have a account opening section, we have a what was that third one? Let's say, suppose a complex system, you are you are trying to implement a complex system using Oracle means service oriented architecture. You can break the whole complete system into different sets of business process, and that business process needs to be merged to get the desired set of result. So this merging of business process is going to be done by this orchestration tool. What is that orchestration tool? Orchestration tool is inbuilt in Oracle SUA suite as BPL process, right? Okay, so see, while you were trying for Oracle SUA suite, you must have seen this name middleware, Oracle middleware technology. Remember, anyone?
Yes, sir.
So this whole book is not going to name any particular tool. These are just using this generic names. So you can see over here advancements in middleware, that is referring over here Oracle SUA suite. Advancement in middleware allows orchestration engines. What is orchestration engine? WSBPL. In this Oracle SUA suite we have WSBPL. We have already worked on this BPL and we are going to work on this BPL a lot. So that orchestration engine themselves to fully integrated in service oriented environment. And the if you have that the BPL orchestration, WSBPL orchestration is implemented over here using a case study of that TLS and Relco. You can see this example on your own. We have already seen this example. Not this example, we have seen, we are continuing with that loan processing example. We are also following that example in our lab, so you can skip this one. Okay, the next important term in our SUA concept, that is, if you want to develop a SUA project, you cannot do it without using that orchestration, right? That is the main thing, right? So it is like main function of your project. If your project does not have main function, it is not going to execute. In the similar way, if your project does not have that BPL process, it is not going to operate. So it is similar to that main function in your C project or C++ project, right? So two things are very important. The first one is orchestration and the second one is choreography. Why we need choreography? See, sorry. So orchestration is generally used in a single organization. Suppose I am developing a banking system, right? And in banking system we have different sets of features, and each feature is represented by a business process, and that business process is going to be implemented using that orchestration tool. Suppose I want to implement that payment gateway. I want to develop a new project just like Google Pay, and it wants to integrate with that banking system payment gateway, right? So in that cases, two business process of two different organization wants to communicate, right? Two business process of two different organization wants to communicate. In that cases, that is called choreography. It is just like foreign key and means we can take this as primary key and foreign key. Suppose a table having primary key, if that key goes to another table, that key going to be represented as foreign key. In the similar way, if two processes wants to communicate with each other, and these two processes are of single organization, then that going to be communicate using that orchestration, right? And if the two processes are of different organization, then that concept is known as then that sorry then they are going to communicate using that choreography concept, right? So for that choreography, we are using web service choreography description language. It is not fully developed yet. So in Oracle Swassit, that choreography is also done by BPL process, right? These are all specification. It depends on the vendors. It depends on the vendors how they are going to implement this, right? So different specifications are provided by the different open standards organizations, like we have W3C. They are providing this specification, and different vendors like Oracle, Microsoft, they are implementing those specifications, right? So similar one open standards have derived created this web service choreography description language, but it is not implemented yet, right? So in Oracle Swassit, that choreography is also done by this BPL. It depends on different tools. Suppose you are using Microsoft Big Stock or IBM WebSphere, so they may be using this choreography concept in a different way. They may be dealing with this choreography concept with in a different manner. But if we talk about Oracle Swassit, this choreography is going to be implemented by BPL process, right? Whether you are using two processes of single organization or two business processes of or different organization, they are going to communicate using that BPL process, right? So we are not going this specification is not yet implemented by any of the vendor. So okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, choreography and orchestration both are looking same, sir. So what is the major difference, sir?
See, yeah, yeah, yeah. You can see the difference over here: orchestration and choreography. Orchestration expresses organization specific business workflow, right? Organization specific. If you are learning primary key and foreign key for the first time, you must got the confusion which you are getting now. That is the minor difference. In in one table, a primary key is called a candidate key is primary key, and that if that candidate key goes to another table, that is called foreign key. In similar way, if two processes belongs to same organization, then in that case if those two processes wants to communicate, that is done by orchestration, right? And if two processes belongs to different organization, and if they want to communicate, that is going to be done by choreography, right?
कोरियोग्राफी में कोई सेंट्रल मैसेजिंग और इंजन नहीं होता सर.
See, a choreography on the other hand, see पहले first ये देखो, an orchestration expresses organization specific business workflow. Organization specific business workflow, right? Means suppose I am developing a banking system. So banking system, it is my organization, and for that organization I will create a workflow, right? In that case, suppose two process wants to communicate, I will be using this orchestration, right? And see over here, a choreography on the other hand is not necessarily owned by a single entity, right? Single entity, that just like trivago.com, we have explained this example. Trivago, Policy Bazaar, they are using different web services provided by the different vendors, right? In that cases we need to use this choreographic concept, but unfortunately or fortunately, this orchestration or choreography is going to be implemented by single BPL process in our Oracle Swassit, right? So conceptually these are two different things, but at the implementation level they become one. Everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it acts as a community interchange pattern used for collaborative processes by services from different provider entities. Right. अब इसको कोई बता सकता है ये बीपीएल प्रोसेस से ही क्यों हो जाता है? Anyone? Guess तो करो.
Orchestration, हाँ sir, orchestration uses the WSBPL sir. So in that way, I think choreography and as choreography using the different orchestrations, so it can also be implemented using the WSBPL.
Anyone? Any other one? मैंने बताया है पहले भी. Nirmal,
Yes, sir.
you want to say something?
Sir, choreography in BPL, we define our web services in a single workflow logic. So the web services can be of different organization or can be of same organization. Like in loan processor, we have credit rating system, which is of another organization. But we have defined within the workflow of BPL.
No,
So
you are just defining the what is the difference between orchestration and choreography, right? But I am asking why this both concepts are going to be implemented by only one BPL process. How? See, in the starting of this chapter, I've I've told you about, suppose you come up with a project, you want to design a distributed architecture. Distributed means you want to design an architecture for distributed systems, right? So we come up with different kinds of issues, right? So what are the different issues there? First one was transaction. The second one was message exchange pattern. Then we have business activities, different kinds of things we have seen. Then we have orchestration. Then we have that choreography, right? So we were dealing with these issues for our distributed system design, right? Distributed architecture, for designing a distributed architecture for our systems, right? But fortunately we come up with a architecture which are using this XML kind of thing, right? Suppose this means I am saying that all these issues must be covered by that Corba architecture too, right? Everyone getting my point or not? Suppose two persons, one is allocated with to design a Corba, right? And second one is using that SUA, right? So these issues must be addressed by each one of them, because both were designing the distributed systems. But in case of service oriented architecture, for the communication purpose, I am using XML. But in Corba, we were using something else. I don't know what they were using. So in case of service oriented architecture, we were using XML. Because of this XML only, each of the systems gets interoperable, right? So from the starting only, we are using that interoperability, right? So because of this interoperability in our hand already, so we do not require this orchestration or choreography as a different thing.
yes, sir.
किसी को समझ में आया कि नहीं आया?
Sir, can you again explain? Sir?
Sorry?
Can you again explain? Sir, little bit confusing.
रुको मैं हिंदी में समझाता हूँ.
नहीं. Yes, Srilekha will not understand and Somu will not understand. You explain it in the lab, okay? आप theory cover करो.
Okay.
हाँ. You try to understand and ask everything in lab. We have a lab class, okay?
Okay. So this chapter is over.
Next chapter थोड़ा सा शुरू कर दो, थोड़ा सा introduction दे दो. You परसों lab है, we have lab tomorrow, day after tomorrow we will be discussing all these things in the lab. And other boys, try to understand yourself from the net today, tonight. Everything is available, you have to give some more effort. Some literatures are available in Google Scholar. So try to open Google Scholar and ask your query. A lot of good articles you will get.
See.
Yeah. Next chapter.
This chapter is in continuation with the previous chapter, the web services and contemporary SWA. So in the first part, we have already seen the composition technique and the different activity management techniques. In this, these were the open issues. So in this chapter, we were dealing with this advanced messaging, metadata, and the security aspects of web services and contemporary SWA. These are the open issues. That open issues means, suppose you get a project to design a new architecture for distributed systems. So you must address these issues, right? You must address these issues. So what are the issues first? We will see what are the issues first and how this SOA means service oriented architecture is going to address these issues, right? So what are the different specifications which are addressing these issues and how this specification is going to be implemented by particular vendor? There are 3 steps. See, first one is what are the issues, how this service oriented architecture is going to address these issues by introducing some kind of WS star, means some kind of extensibility to these WS systems, right? And how this WS system is going to be implemented by particular vendor. Okay. This is a complex diagram for now. Let us skip this first. We are okay. So the first one, see, this is the one of the issue. See the title over here, that addressing. What this addressing means? Addressing is you know the addressing systems. Why we are using addressing? To invoke a particular web service. Suppose you didn't get a particular URL to access a service. So suppose you don't know the IP address or www means you don't know the name of the Google. So how could you find a particular thing on google.com? So that is like addressing. You must need an URL to access a particular service. That is all about this addressing. And how this addressing is going to be addressed in SOAP messages. This addressing is going to be implemented or addressed using this endpoint reference. In our lab, we have seen this WSDL, right? So suppose there are 2 service. One service is service requester and one service is service provider. Then if service requester wants to access the services provided by the service provider, then that service requester must have that WSDL file with them. And what that WSDL file consists of? WSDL file consists of what are the different classes available in the service requester, what are the different functions with the service requester, right? So till now, using that WSDL file, I simply know what are the different functions I could use, what are the different parameters I need to provide to get the particular result, right? Suppose I know at the service and at the service provider we have addition function, and to call that addition function I need to know the addition the function name, means I have the addition function name. and I need to know whether that function requires 2 parameters or 3 parameters, and what is the data type of that parameters, and what is the data type of result, that is the return type, right? So using that, these are the contents of the WSDL file. But one thing I have skipped in our lab class, WSDL also consists of one more thing, that is endpoint reference. Suppose you get the name, parameters and return times. How will you call, how will you invoke a particular service if you don't know the URL of that service? So the WSDL file must contains one endpoint reference. See over here. All that required for a service requester to contact a service provider is the WSDL file, right? This document, among with other things, what are the definite among other things? Function name, parameters, return type. These are the simply among other things, right? And in addition to that, we have supplies the requester with an address. That address is endpoint reference, address at which the provider can be contacted, right? So addressing, this concept of addressing introduces the endpoint reference. So what is the content of this endpoint reference? Endpoint reference not only contains the URL of the service provider, it also contains different things. What are the contents? See over here. So endpoint reference can contains of address, reference properties, reference parameters, service port type, and the policy. So till now we know what is the service, we know what is the till now we have seen the endpoint reference must consist of this URL of the web service, means URL of the service provided by the web service provider, right? So what are these four? We will see. Okay, so reference properties means, suppose a particular service is running on a huge server. Suppose you are using a Google API, Google API authentication API, Google authentication API in your project, right? So it must provide with that reference properties. What is that reference property? It denotes set of property values associated with web service instance. You know the meaning of this instance, right? So which suppose I want to communicate with the 5th instance of that particular web service, means I want to invoke 5th instance of Edison web service. So this reference property will going to consist of 5. The value of this reference property will be 5 because I want to invoke the 5th instance of a particular Edison service, right? So we can have here reference parameter as well, the set of parameter values that can be used to further interact with the specific server instance. Suppose this is quite clear, a set of parameter values that can be used to further interact with the specific server instance. I want to again interact with the same instance, right? Why do we want to again contact with that same instance? Anyone? What is the logic behind this?
To retain more information according to the user part.
Suppose each time you you are, suppose I am invoking for the first time, I am invoking 5th instance. At the later point of time I invoke the 6th instance. So as we know, this web services uses HTTP, and HTTP is a stateless protocol. So this web service is not going to remember anything, right? In a stateless protocol is not going to remember anything. So to make it stateless somewhat, right, in some form, to make it stateful, it is going to remember something, right? So for that cases it wants to further interact with a specific server instance again and again, right? So we have here service port type, a specific service interface information giving the recipient of the message exact location of the service description details required for reply, right? Please read it again. You will get easily. What is the policy? A WS policy. Anyone remembers this policy? Why? What is the content of this? What is the meaning of this policy? Suppose as a service provider, I am exposing a service, addition service, which has a class name addition and the function name is add, and it is accepting two parameters, integer a, integer b, and it is returning integer c, right? So all these parameters are integer in type, right? And I want this service to be exposed from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. only, right? So these this policy of usage of my service is not going to be not going to be exposed in WSDL file. It is going to be exposed in endpoint reference only. Got my point, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See over here, we have a service pool, service instance. What is this meaning of service pool? Anyone? Resource pool or service pool?
Set of services.
Set of services. So suppose as a service I require let's say processing speed of 10 gigahertz, means 10 gigahertz, right? So suppose till now we have only 3.3 gigahertz processing. A1 i7 processor. बोलो यार. It is just like using your hard drive, right? Suppose I have a movie of 1 GB. I am using let's say I have a movie of 16 GB, but in my mobile phone I am using SD card of 4 GB and my internal memory is of 64 GB, right? And both are quite full, right? Means neither of them can accommodate that single 16 GB movie, right? But but after accumulating the free spaces of both the drives, I can store my movie in that SD card, right? So it is not possible to either to store that movie in a single SD1 or SD0, right? So what I can do, I can simply make them a memory pool. So using that memory pool concept, both 16 4 GB and 4 GB SD card, let's say it has 12 GB of free and it has 2 GB of free, means let's say it has 10 GB of free and it has 2 GB of free, right? So I have a movie of 12 GB. So this movie cannot be stored in this 16 GB and cannot be stored in 4 GB. So if I use the concept of memory pool, both these memory get combined and it will expose 10 plus 2 14 GB of 10 plus 2 12 GB of empty spaces, so that I can store my this 12 GB of movie, right? Getting my point or not?
Yes, sir.
So this service pooling concept or this resource pooling concept, whatever the resources, whether it is memory, whether it is CPU, or whether it is network, all these are resources, whether the storage, all these are resources, right? So this resource pooling concept works in this fashion. So cloud computing purely uses the concept of pooling, resource pooling, right? Cloud computing purely uses the concept of resource pooling. And how this resource pooling done? Resource pooling is done by SOA. So suppose you may be asked a question, why cloud computing is related to SOA. SOA is the way that SOA is the way from which we can perform resource pooling, and resource pooling is used in cloud computing. And what is resource pooling? You can get this from this example. Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can see over here in the service pool we have a service A, and service A is running with 3 instances: instance 1, instance 2, and instance 3, right? And service B wants to invoke this particular service. It wants to invoke service instance 1, right? So it must pass with reference ID 1, that is this one, reference properties, web service instance. Okay. So sir, sir, okay, I'm continuing. Okay. So till now we have seen what is the concept of this, what is the meaning of this endpoint references, right? So see, we have already seen this whole chapter in the previous chapter and this chapter. It already it discusses about the open issues. First one is the open issues. How these open issues is going to be implemented in SOA, means in form of WS, right? WS extension, and how this WS extension is going to be implemented in particular tool. There are 3 stages, right? So till now we have gone through the first stage of addressing, right? That is the open issue. Why we require that in our in our distributed architecture we have seen, right? And how this maintain. So SOA come up with addressing mechanism, WS addressing mechanism. It each of the following we have already discussed in the starting, right? Am I audible? Hello.
Yes. You go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So
all these 7 points questions will come. Earlier 4, 5 points, these 7 points small question will come. So be clear if you have any doubt. This thing you have done. You have a destination, source endpoint, reply endpoint. From where you are sending, that is source. To where you are, that service, always keep in mind. What is that? Service provider and service
requester.
Always requester is the endpoint, is the who requests. Source, service provider. So keep always these 2 things, who is providing, who is requesting. Always these 2 things keep it in mind. Always. Okay, chalo. 7 points को बोल दो और आज बंद कर दो. ये 7 points. Yeah.
Okay. So from the starting of this chapter, we have already seen what are the different contents of this endpoint reference, and what are the contents of this what was that WSDL file, right? So all these WSDL file contents and this addressing content, endpoint reference contents, are formalized, right, or standardized by WS WS addressing, right? So these all things we have already discussed. These are the same names we have already discussed in this starting of this chapter. So destination. So what is the destination? We already know. The source endpoint we already know. Reply endpoint we already know. And the what is the fault endpoint? Suppose anything goes wrong. So how to deal with that kind of scenarios? So we must provide a fault endpoint, means a URL. Sorry, a URL which is going a service which is going to be invoked, a service which is going to be invoked if anything goes wrong. Suppose a message, right? A kind of a message like something goes error, right? We have seen that error 404 or any kind of error. So that is invoked if anything goes wrong, right? So that the address of that service is known as fault endpoint. What is the message ID, what is the relationship, and what is the action, right? So message ID is required. We have already seen the asynchronous message exchange pattern, right? So message ID is required in asynchronous messaging exchange pattern. Why we require this message ID? Suppose in case of asynchronous messaging systems, we have already seen I can invoke a particular service, and in the meantime I can execute the further lines of code written in the web service part, right? So suppose I am executing fourth line, fifth line, and after that I again invoking the same web service. So how this is web service how this service provider get to know to which line, to which web service I need to reply. So in that cases we need message ID, right? And for the transmission purpose also we need message ID, right? We have another concept, correlation ID. We will see in our in the last of this chapter. We have also we are going to see concept of correlation ID, that is doing the same thing. So and the relation part, most commonly used in request response scenarios. This header contains the message ID of the related message to which message is replying. We have already seen this thing. And the action consists of the protocols, right? So in these cases, in SOAP messaging, we have seen the HTTP protocol is used. So in this action part, we will going to use SOAP HTTP, right? So it is all going to be implemented or done by Oracle SOA, but we need to understand this concept. So why we require to understand this concept? Suppose in future if you are implementing some certain project and it come up with some errors, right? So if you do not know any one of these concepts, you cannot configure the right thing, right? So you need to know the concept, what is the backend logic, how this XML works, how this XSLT works, how this XQRI works, how this XPath works, right? So if anything goes wrong, then you can configure it correctly, right? Because if okay, so this is same thing we have already seen. And how this addressing is going to support or promote, means which principles of SOA is going to be supported by addressing. So addressing mechanism support which principles? Each promotes loose coupling, interoperability, reusability, discoverability, and quality of service. You can think on your own why this addressing mechanism is not supporting composability, why this addressing mechanism not supporting vendor diversity and extensibility, and why this addressing mechanism only supporting this loose coupling, interoperability, reusability, discoverability, and quality of service. if you do not understand this, if in the exam, if this question will be asked, it is like sorry, अगर इसको नहीं समझोगे तो लगेगा कि इसको याद करना है. ठीक है. ओके.
Understand, they have to understand. Okay, आज छोड़ दो. You have to ask yourself where the problem, why it doesn't support, why it supports. Okay, छोड़ दो. ठीक है. We'll meet tomorrow. Okay. Okay, Abhishek, take attendance. छोड़ दो.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Everyone, please attend your roll call. Vikas Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Jitendra Gora.
Yes, sir. Jitendra present.
Ashutosh Gupta.